the iPhone is finally getting a new flagship, as Apple just announced their highly anticipated iPhone 15 Ultra, which will replace the iPhone 14 Pro Max as the company's most expensive and technologically advanced phone. However, how better could the iPhone 15 Ultra possibly be? Let's take a closer look and compare the iPhone 15 Ultra and the iPhone 14 Pro Max. A new camera sensor. We can expect the upcoming iPhone 15 Pro to come with a noticeable upgrade when it comes down to the camera sensor, especially since the majority of the upcoming iPhone 15 lineup is expected to retain the older sensor found in the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max. It's no secret that the iPhone 14 Pro fared quite poorly compared to most of its rivals when it comes down to low light performance, as its sensor failed to capture enough light, resulting in much less detailed nighttime photos. The new sensor is expected to be significantly larger than the previous one, which means that the phone will be able to capture noticeably more light, thus increasing low light performance, pictures retaining more details, and a more natural bokeh when in portrait mode. We wouldn't expect a significant change in the megapixel department. However, it's not like the iPhone's camera needed that in the first place. Oh, and while on the topic of the camera, here's an addition of the Periscope telephoto lens. The iPhone 14 Pro Max was fitted with a fairly limited standard telephoto lens that offered a laughable 3x optical zoom, which could have easily been beaten by even the lower-end phones that other manufacturers offered. This was unacceptable for most buyers, especially when coupled with the less than adequate low-light performance, as the nighttime pictures that were taken using the telephoto were almost always extremely underwhelming. Well, you'd be glad to hear that the iPhone 15 Ultra will finally sort out this issue, as unlike the previous top-of-the-line iPhone models, which came with the regular telephoto lens, the Ultra will come with Periscope telephoto lens for the first time ever in the iPhone lineup. This will allow the phone to achieve between 6 times to 10 times the optical zoom, and while the iPhone most certainly won't be the most capable phone on the market when it comes down to zoom, it'll be able to easily hold its own. You can expect a radical change in the quality department. As a combination with the updated sensor, you can expect those nighttime sky photos to look much more alluring and detailed than they ever did. The addition of the new A17 Bionic chipset. The iPhone 14 Pro Max utilized the, by now, fairly outdated processor, which is the A16 Bionic chipset. Now, granted, there isn't anything wrong with it. However, it's evident that it has begun to struggle with the appearance of the new generation of iPhone's rivals. Well, the upgraded A17 Bionic chipset will add that needed oomph to the iPhone 15 Ultra to once again position it at the top of the food chain. The A16 has been made using a 5nm manufacturing process, which has led to considerably less power efficiency and made the overall battery life very mediocre at best. The A17, on the other hand, is expected to use a 3nm process, which will significantly improve power and efficiency, as the A17 benchmarks show a very evident performance leap between it and its predecessor, and since the maximum amount of drawn power will be limited by the battery size, thermal dissipation, and countless other less significant factors, we can expect the iPhone 15 Ultra to have a much larger battery life compared to the iPhone 14 Pro Max. A more distinctive and durable design. Let's be honest, iPhone's current design language is getting a bit old. Yes, the iPhone 14 Pro Max is among the most elegant and well-designed phones out there. However, compared to its other 3 predecessors, it looks virtually indistinguishable, save for the dynamic island and a few other differences. Well, with the iPhone 15 Ultra, we can expect Apple to finally step away from their usual formula, as it could replace the rather sharp design with something a bit softer and more rounded around the corners, making the phone much more ergonomic to hold. The design change is actually very similar to the change that happened between the iPhone 5S and the iPhone 6. The glass back panel will also be replaced by aluminum, whereas the side stainless steel panels will be replaced by titanium, which will make the phone considerably more rigid and durable compared to its predecessors. Plus, it'll also make the phone significantly lighter than the iPhone 14 Pro Max, which was a tad on the cumbersome side. We don't expect any major changes in the display though, as we believe that the panel will remain mostly the same. The only thing that could change could be the dynamic island, which could get smaller. The long-awaited switch to USB-C. With the ever-rising pressure that the European Union is putting on Apple concerning their proprietary Lightning port, we can expect the iPhone 15 Ultra to finally utilize a USB-C port, which would be a serious step forward for the company, as we wouldn't need to worry about recharging our phone again. Still, we've got to say that we're completely flabbergasted at Apple's willingness willingness to give up their proprietary charging port, as they've always liked the idea of utilizing their own versions of already established features just so they can differentiate themselves. The regulations themselves exist not to plummet Apple, but to actually lower the total amount of e-waste, and we're glad that at least somebody found a way to finally steer Apple away from their stupid solutions to problems that didn't even exist. The shift to USB-C will allow Apple to increase the charging power output from a measly 20 watts to a very impressive 35 watts, which means that you'll be able to recharge your phone much faster. Oh, and while on the topic of charging, you'll finally be able to charge your iPhone wirelessly at fairly solid speeds, as we'll be able to achieve up to 20 watts of wireless charging, which is on par with the iPhone 14 Pro Max's wired charging speeds. Some other minor changes. Apart from the very significant changes that we've already mentioned, the iPhone 15 Ultra will also improve most of the complaints that Apple's customers were having with the previous models, starting with the lack of an action button. Well, you'd be pleased to know that the mute button, which was, in our opinion, very obsolete, will be replaced with a proper action button to which you can bind almost every function that's available on the new iPhone 15 Ultra. So if you dislike the fact that there's no mute button, you could easily bind the action button to the mute function. Next up is the choice of colors, and you can expect the resurgence of more toned down, earthly colors, such as the titanium gray, which will be much more in line with the more rugged design of the phone. The RAM will also get updated, as the iPhone 15 Ultra will from now on come with LPDDR5.8GB. This means that we'll both have a larger amount of RAM and a much faster memory frequency, especially compared to 6GB of RAM, which the iPhone 14 Pro Max offered, and which was one of the more substantial bottlenecks for serious work on the phone. Next up is the choice of storage. The storage will vary between 256GB and a phenomenal 2TB, with the latter logically being the most expensive of the bunch. Speaking of expensive, there's also a substantial price increase. Yes, we're sad to announce that the iPhone 15 Ultra will be a considerably more expensive phone than the iPhone 14 Pro Max. However, that was to be expected, as the Ultra was designed as the new and much more premium flagship. The price difference between the iPhone Ultra and the iPhone 14 Pro Max will be one of the biggest monetary leaps between the two Apple generations, with the Ultra costing almost $500 more according to some sources, which is completely unacceptable. And for this reason, we believe that the Ultra might not be as adored and as accessible to users as the iPhone 14 Pro Max, especially if we take into consideration that it hasn't had any major updates in the display department. Overall, we believe that you should buy the iPhone 14 Pro Max, as despite being severely under-equipped compared to the Ultra, it'll also be considerably cheaper, especially if the regular versions of the iPhone 15 come out, as the upcoming iPhone 15 Pro Max might be a better choice for those of us that don't live in opulence.